Hello, everyone. Before we begin, Tomas and I want to give a heartfelt thank you to all of you for listening. If you're here for the first time, we want to say welcome and thank you for being here. We are grateful for your curiosity and interest in these human stories. If you are a repeat listener and have appreciated getting to know the folks interviewed here, we want to thank you as well. We'd like to ask all of you to consider making a small donation. You can do this by visiting our Patreon page found on our You Know Me Now website. As a nonprofit, we are 100% supported by folks just like you. Okay, let's get started.
This is a safe place. So what I mean by safe place is if you got a problem with somebody, walk it off and talk it off to us and let us handle it. If you start handling your own problems, then you're not making it a safe place. It's our job to handle the issues between you folks and to separate and to talk calmly and to not posture, not have to put on airs, not have to fight something you don't have to fight, not have to pull weapons. Those kind of things are not okay. When one person has to put up, another person puts up. And we know what goes on when that happens, and we don't like that. So everybody that's been here a minute knows violence is not okay. Also, I heard some words falling out of some people's mouths the other day. What else is not okay? Is any kind of language that is racist, sexist, violent, insightful, any kind of ism. So please remember, if something falls out of your mouth that you aren't willing to own up to and take back immediately, those are two things that will walk you out these doors immediately. I'm so sorry to say that. Violence, theft, and any kind of prejudice that you are not willing to man up to, own up to, and stop immediately. If you want to get yourself behind some kind of feelings, that is okay. You just can't do it here because we've guaranteed and talk all the time about having a safe place. I want you guys to have a safe place when these doors close at night. So please remember that. I will be having a couple of private conversations with people just to ease the tension. Nobody's in trouble. I just want people to realize that we really do care about everyone's safety, not just one person's safety. Don't escalate things when things happen between new people. If you can be that friend to a new person, please do it. You guys have been here a minute, you know how to do it. You know how to pull somebody aside. Don't be a tattletale, be a friend. Okay?
I'm Rex Holbein, and welcome to You Know Me Now, a podcast conversation that strives to amplify the unheard voices in our community. In these episodes, I want to remind all of our listeners that the folks who share here do so with a great deal of vulnerability and courage. They share a common hope that by giving all of us this window into their world, they are opening an increased level of awareness, understanding, and perhaps most importantly, a connection within our own community. On today's episode, I sit down with Ren and Adam, the co-founders of The Outsiders Inn. I met them 8 years ago. At that time, Ren and Adam were living in the basement of a house where the owner, a deacon in the church, let them be there for next to nothing. He also allowed them to care for friends that were struggling through homelessness. This included being okay with tents and several small shelters being built in the backyard, as well as folks living in their cars parked along the street. All of these people were receiving care and simple services provided by Adam and Ren. In those early days, everyone knew it was only a matter of time before the city of Vancouver, Washington would shut it down. Their story is one of against all odds success, which now has them running their own nonprofit, employing 42 people, all providing necessary services for those in need. Now, having said that, here is the really earth-shakingly beautiful part. Are you ready? Every single one of those 42 employees was formerly homeless. How beautiful is that? And how are they doing this? In the simplest of terms, they're putting relationship and connection first, leading with compassion, understanding, and patience. They truly see the value in every person and work to bring it to the forefront. There is clarity in the rules and boundaries, along with a deep understanding of how to navigate difficult moments that comes with a population often traumatized. Where does that understanding come from, you might ask? Adam and Ren will tell you it comes from being in relationship, being close enough to know and feel the nuances. They see no differences or separation between those being served and those providing services. That is peer support. For Ren and Adam, that is family. Why don't you introduce yourselves first?
I'm Adam Kravitz, and I'm with Outsiders In.
I'm Ren and I'm also with Outsiders In. We're co-founders of OutsidersIn.org in Vancouver, Washington.
And there's a lot that you've been doing, and I'm so excited to get to that. But first, let's talk to both of you about who you are.
Well, I'm a Midwestern girl. I was born in Indiana, raised in Texas, and then raised my children in Wichita, Kansas, and then found my way out to the West Coast in this later chapter of my life.
Nice. And how was your childhood? Did you have a happy childhood?
We did. Sometimes in the moment we were along for the ride and the changes that were happening in my own parents' life. My parents were business people, and so we had to kind of be brave to change spaces and try the next thing.
So when you say business people, you mean like they were forever starting up new businesses? And
I think my father was in sales and so sold insurance and houses and kind of followed the market. And he was willing to provide for his family the way he knew how. And so he was a strong guy. No, we had a good relationship, but didn't realize how unstable sometimes that moving was, and it got us the bravery to try again and to start a new school and to go into a new area. I think moving, it was destabilizing, but at the same time, it was also, we didn't take it as that.
But in general,
I think
sounds like you had a good childhood.
It gave us we had the courage to try new things.
Yeah, nice. And Adam, how about yourself?
I was born in Los Angeles. I had an older brother. My dad and me and my older brother, he left my mom and then met another woman, and we moved across country to Michigan. They had 2 additional kids, so we had a blended family. From the very earliest age, there was a lot of abuse with my first mother, and then a lot of abuse and violence throughout most of my childhood. We moved again to Colorado somewhere right before junior high. Yeah, I think there was a lot of moving, a lot of poverty. Camping in the summertime was normal because we were just looking for a new home, but for us it was camping at campgrounds in the summertime. But it was just very normalized to be searching for new homes.
Wait a minute, when you were a kid, you thought of being in the parks or in campgrounds as camping, but was the family actually homeless?
Oh yeah, the family was homeless on a regular. Like we would move to another city and camp until they found a new home. And sometimes we didn't find a new home. We'd go to another campground in another city. I think I've been in about 32 states, just with the traveling and looking for cities to live in. And while we would be in the campground, parents would go to town and they'd come back with, newspaper articles and other things. And it was very normalized for us that, traveling around and finding a new home, having a camper trailer. And so that was in the, 70s and early 80s.
Yeah. Not necessarily even aware that that's not what all families are doing.
That was normal. I just thought it was normal. And
that's what people did.
Yeah. But then obviously with a lot of abuse and stuff in my family, 5 boys, a lot of rebellion, arrest, drugs that started happening early on. And so I eventually left early. I left when I was 16, ran away, hitchhiked across the country to LA, of all places, went to the beach, managed to take care of myself for a summer down there, got a job and took care of myself, and then made my way back up here where my family had moved to Washington and Vancouver. Tried to, do the not smoke pot and get to clean and sober and get a job. Did all that for a little while, joined the Navy, got out of the Navy, and then came back here, got in more trouble, smoking pot, drinking, and not knowing what I was going to do. But always had a job, I always worked, was always able to get an apartment or a room. So very normal for me to be in between apartments, just like I had learned from my family. But back then it was pretty easy to secure a place if you had a job. So I've always worked in the restaurant industry. My last time getting arrested when I was like 20 or 21, I believe, I settled down in Portland, met a girl, got married, helped raise somebody else's kid for a while, spent about 13 years kind of just doing that life and restaurant life and, filing for bankruptcy and all those kind of things that you do in the 90s, 2000s and 90s. And,
right. When I hear... That's not an uncommon story that you just shared, right, with your childhood. But what is a little uncommon is this statement of, but I always had work. I always worked. Where do you think that came from? If you were to think, did your parents model that? Is it just something inside of you?
I mean, my dad was nothing else. He was violent and angry and a genius, but he always worked, and so I knew early on that you had to work, and so that's
what you did.
That's what you did, and I knew that from the very beginning. So I at least learned that part of it. That wasn't untrue,
Yeah. When you think of your childhood, is there trauma there that you still carry that you think negatively of, or do you have a place to put all that, and you think of your childhood as still being a good childhood?
Well, I've never thought of it as good. I think that I spent a lot of my life so stuck in it and not realizing how damaging it was to me. I think I'm in a place now where I can keep it kind of tucked in the spot, and I'm still working on healing. Yeah. So it's always going to be, there's parts of it that are always going to affect me. Yep. And then there's parts of it I think as I help others daily, it helps me to heal from some of that stuff.
Just before Ren and Adam met, Ren was working through some difficult times of her own.
Well, I was getting out of my own stint of homelessness. I had traveled from Kansas down to LA to help a family member go through hospice, and after that I kind of ended up staying on the coast, and my own life had changed, and the kids had grown up and they've moved out, and now what? Here I was on the coast. And so I took the opportunity to drive up the coast with my dog in my van, but then kind of got stuck in the coast and I don't know, it was nice to hearing things, but I was in my own grief and my own changing and taking Instagram pictures.
Own grief from?
Well, life change, the process of my own life with my family, with my kids and my previous marriage, and just everything kind of unwinded, and it was just not an easy change in life. And so what is next?
Yeah, so you were in this reflective processing state of making sense of it all.
Yeah, it got to this point where I was really recognizing I was just hanging out on the side of the road and looking at beautiful things, but at the same time I was really just getting stuck. Fear, because it's like you start fearing the things that's outside of your van and then the different people. And so I found, it take me, a half hour here, and then before long, I'm hanging out for hours here before I can go into the Dollar Tree. So I'm struggling here.
Eventually, Ren ended up moving to the Portland, Vancouver area and got an apartment with her son. Around this time, she met Adam on an online dating platform, which led them to meeting up on New Year's Eve 2014. It was not only the beginning of their relationship, it was the start for their Outsiders In project.
It took us a long time before we actually solidified our relationship, probably a year and a half. But we stayed working on our project.
Yes.
Completely.
Totally.
And then
Wait a minute, our project. Did you have
we knew, like, probably within the first 3-4 months that this Outsiders In was gonna. She was like, "Let's build a website."
And that was the
This is
thing.
the Facebook page and a website.
I said,
and
you
I was
can.
like,
I said, if you want to do a cause and the advocacy around it, and that's the one thing that I had really, again, dove into the internet stuff with bloggers and having conversations, as he was being very vocal and advocate, around the homeless and our experiences. Like, man, we should tell stories about this. This is, we're not alone.
So when you two met online, though, it sounds like you had an immediate bond or connection over advocacy and basically nurturing and caring for people that were struggling.
I mean, I did speak about it a little bit, but I think there was a bond for a whole lot of other reasons. Because she made me think about music, and she made me think about things that I hadn't had a chance to, like, think about in a long time.
Yeah.
I think we were peer supporting each other through coming out of this change in our spaces in our life, and that we were coming up to new chapters. And what was it that we wanted to bond over? Who do we want to have as a friend, and who do we want to have as work partners to collaborate and
to be mindful of all of that.
And a little bit. I mean, I think that there's some of it that you have to give to the universe.
So you do get together, and then, as you said, Adam, you start to transition into also some conversations about what you guys want to do. And how quickly does Outsiders In actually emerge, and where did the name come from? Which is, I love it.
It's easy.
Well, for me, the idea was significantly implanted in my head long before I met Ren. I didn't know what it was going to be called, but I knew I was going to do something. Outsiders In was born, one, out of the love of the book The Outsiders, and the early on understanding of the us and them, when there really was no different. And I learned that at a very young age with that book and a lot of other books. But then living the life of, being on the streets and really seeing the division and knowing that one of the goals of Outsiders In was always going to be about changing perception. And then the INN is just for the vision of knowing that we're going to have a place, or we're going to be we're going to be an entity where we're going to be welcoming people in like an inn.
And I think I heard you say earlier that all of those thoughts and feelings came pretty quickly with the two of you coming together.
None of this could have happened the way it's happened without us meeting and both of our different passions and our skill set. Like, just meeting, and I almost want to say like a volcano. And
when you started sharing the story, I was like, well, let's package that. Let's put that on at least a Facebook page and have a conversation about it. I've seen other people put together stories, Humans of New York, and I had even seen, Facing Homelessness and some of the early stories, that starting to recognize that sharing the stories was the important part, to recognize that there wasn't a lot of difference between us and them. And that was one of the lessons that I had learned while I was in my vehicle, that I was, parked away and somebody didn't get to see me. They didn't get to see me reorganizing the back of my vehicle. But then the person that had a backpack, and that they were trying to sit on the side of the building and open up and go through the backpack, they were asked to leave. And it was just like in those moments that I recognized how much privilege I had to be able to be in my vehicle. But there really wasn't any difference to what I was utilizing the space about and what they were utilizing the space about. Am I homeless, or am I just a traveler with my dog and I'm trying to look together? But is there any difference? No, there really isn't. And how do we navigate what do we do next? It becomes even harder of a reach. Those were the stories that we were bonding over, and it was like I had a desire to somehow pull it together in a space. And so that was I said, well, let's create a nonprofit. Let's do it.
we were inserting ourselves in any meeting that had to do with homelessness.
Yeah.
We were talking to a lot of people. We had met some church people. We were starting to get like noticed and invited to like, who are these people with these voices? You know, we'd go to the city hall meetings, and
you were showing up.
We were showing up. And then we also got involved in a lawsuit that was building against the county for throwing away people's homeless belongings. I was the lead plaintiff, and I was helping get more plaintiffs. And we had like 9 of us that were building had a lawsuit against the county. So that was getting a little bit of attention too. And then we also had got an opportunity to start doing the Abbey.
And explain the Abbey. It was a house.
It was a deacon who had an unpermitted property that you couldn't live on, but would let us live there and do our ministry, and he would support us with cheap rent.
He had a big heart, and he just, sure, he had that can-do attitude, and he was making it happen too. Some people, you're able to use the property in a certain way, and it goes, and then before long you have too many, and then you have to make sure that it's done right. And that's kind of the part of the things that we really did learn through a lot of his lessons, is that, well, why can't you just do it this way? Because a lot of times you want to answer these questions and these problems with, well, why don't you just do this? And there's a lot of reasons between finances and permitting and neighborhood expectations, and there's a big process to have a successful project in the end.
Yeah.
But it's also, you learn a lot on the underground ones too.
You learn along the way, and I think one of the things that is true, and I just know this from jumping into starting Facing Homelessness, is that you don't need to know the answers to start, right? Because if you wait for all the answers, chances are you won't start. So part of it is just jumping in and then finding the answers as you go.
And willing to be learned the whole way through.
Yeah.
And we learned that in the beginning, because part of the reason that we got involved with the Deacon at the Oneida Abbey was that at that time, there was this insurgent across the country to, hey, I have some lumber, and I have some wheels and stuff, and I know how to build a little tiny house on wheels for people. And they were not little tiny houses, they were little tiny huts. Some the shape of dog houses, some the shape of little castles. It was just a wide variety, tool sheds, igloos, you name it. But there was a surgence of these people being built and given to them on the streets, and then they were being put in people's property, and then people were like, how do I manage this person in this little hut? And so then Ren and Adam came along and were like, well, let's stop trying to manage the person. Let's just, we have an idea. And then Deacon Dave said, I have 2 huts on my property. The law says they can camp over here, and there's these people camping in a car. Would you, if you guys could live in my basement, it's not legal, but if you want to, I'll give it to you for cheap. And we were like, that's kind of how it started.
And is that when you two moved in together?
Yes.
Yep.
So when you started that, it was just you two managing the property and the house, right? Living in the basement, and you had the little hut in the back, and then you had some tents too, right?
Well, at our peak, we had about 10 to 11 people at times. We actually had 3 huts, a couple car campers, and then a couple people that would pitch tents, but they'd have to have the tents tore down by the morning time. So that was kind of at our peak. But on a regular, we had 6 to 8 people. One of the people that lived in the huts had some very significant mental health issues that we really had to learn and struggle around. There were so many lessons that we learned in that year and a half with that project, about boundaries, about how to manage without control, which is a big deal.
That's a book right there.
Yeah, and because the once you take control of something you don't have control of, then there's a power struggle, and so we had to learn how to coexist.
And
community.
Be
we had to learn how to see people in different ways. Just because someone's yelling at something in the air doesn't mean we know what they're yelling at. And once you spend time with community, you might actually learn what somebody might be yelling at, and then it makes all the difference.
How were you guys paying bills during that time?
We were both working as peers. Our bills were very minimal. We were living minimal. Our bills were minimal. He was charging us minimal.
And I was still working on website
Gig
maintenance stuff. And gig work, and then starting to take on more peer trainings and
Yeah,
stepping into the peer work.
Were you providing services other than shelter, shower, companionship? Basically, you were creating a relationship in a small community.
that's the services we provide today.
Yeah.
We provide community with all the needs and wants for stability, whether it be shower, laundry, access to computer, and community, like safe, supportive community. That's what we were building then, what we build now.
And I think now our programs have grown in the ability to care, connect, and coordinate. It started with blankets and hand warmers and bottles of water, and those are resources that continue to be coordinated every year through now. But now we have them through the gates of the shelters and through the outreach teams, and we have a little bit more of a intentional way of going about it.
Over the years, Outsiders Inn has grown and expanded quickly. They operate the St. Paul Lutheran Church shelter and 2 tiny home shelters called 415 and Outpost. Additionally, they run a cold weather shelter, an outreach program, and mail service for anyone without an address. The organization currently has 42 employees, all who have lived experience with homelessness. 42 employees that all have lived experience.
Yes, They do.
Which is remarkable. You're unaware of anybody else doing that.
So peer work, peer support and peer work has been around a long time, and we want to give that the homage that it deserves. It roots back to the civil rights movement and survivors of mental health institutions. But peer work in homeless service providers, for the most part, is 1 to 25 ratio within an organization. So an all founded, all ran, and 100% staffed peer homeless service provider. I don't know another one in Washington State, and there probably are other ones in the country, but I imagine we're far and few between.
Yeah, and even the 1 out of the 25 tends to get marginalized, right?
Well, co-opted into the organization as just another case manager.
Yeah,
ish.
So 3 shelters, 42 employees, all with lived experience, peer relationships. How do you manage that? Explain what the process looks like of navigating that many employees for you guys.
Well, the peer model is really about empowerment, self-determination, trust, communication, really living a transparent and holistic life with boundaries. The hiring process is pretty open. Our communication is wide open. We have team leads that are really dedicated to the cause and us, and they communicate well. The whole thing thrives on communication and honesty. Yeah.
And I think our history of having multiple site locations, and so each of the program sites have their own individual teams, and kind of like our model works is they're a small community, and so each location has the staff and the residents, and so each one of them have a care and a slice of responsibility for upkeep of the space. There's community chores, there's people who are looking to have purpose, and having that hands-on approach. We have community gardens in the spaces. We have, push brooms that need to be done, and cigarette butt patrols, and, things that just need to be handled through cleaning out the refrigerators, to restocking the toilet, paper. And so different people between staff and residents, they all pitch into the space because they recognize the worth of it. It becomes a good community space, and it is. It's a space that's mostly clean, and people have got things organized,
almost spotless, I would say.
And people have a lot of pride in their communities.
Yeah.
People enjoy that, and I think that's part of the stabilizing force of being able to be in community. That you encourage and empower each other in taking care of yourself and your spaces.
Yeah. List for me what you can share are the are this, the strength and beauty of, the peer model, and what are the hurdles?
I think the Sam's thing that everyone can heal. Everybody can heal and do better, but that there's a process
The
to
SAMHSA
this.
definition of recovery is what she's referring to. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
The SAMHSA definition of recovery really is
Everybody,
go for that.
everybody can heal, and over time and intention that everybody can improve and heal through whatever it is that they are struggling. Because sometimes it feels very hopeless. Everybody can heal from those dark spots.
And if we empower them, then we open that door to healing.
We absolutely do, and it just takes sometimes just one person and one connection and that one handhold to get you up and out of those those really deep dark places. And so whenever we're able to make community and encourage each other and then empower people to make choices and to have autonomy to, well, what is it that you would like, and then really get to encourage them on that journey. I think that there's a lot of healing that happens, and it's the healing that is needed. I think sometimes people often say, this idea of housing first and let's just get you into a place, which is not, it's not it's important. It's part of the puzzle, but then there's also that sometimes these spaces can be also very isolating, and that to understand how to communicate with neighbors and how to be okay with people around is a big thing for people who have been disconnected.
Yeah, I love all of what you just said, and it flies in the face of so much of what we do in our society is based on a throwaway concept, right? It's not working, just throw it away. And I think, we see that in homelessness a lot, right? Throwing away people. They're not fitting in, they're not working, for whatever reason, because of their trauma or because of a list of reasons, right? That they're just not fitting in. Let's just throw them away. And I love that, you say everybody can heal and move forward, right?
Given the space and time, and I think that some folks are more ready to go through that process than others.
But you also, as the person on the outside of that, you don't know if it's tomorrow or 10 years, right?
No.
So, just I think you have to trust that it's there. You just don't know when.
What are the strengths and what other hurdles of hiring folks with lived experience? It's an absolute must to do this work. So that's the strength. The strength is you need to hire people who've experienced what your guests have experienced.
And this isn't obvious, but I'm going to ask you to say it, is why is that important?
It's a must because for those of us who've experienced this, there's a certain amount of credibility that comes with, no one knows what I've been through unless you've been through it. So I have experienced case managers who won't look me in the eye. I've experienced shelter providers who don't know a single thing about me and don't care. And so at least the minimum I would like is that when people walk through the doors, that they know that the people that are serving me have just a little bit of an idea of what I've been through. And just a little bit. It's the credibility that means you look me in the eye, you talk to me a little differently, you call me by my name. There's a familiarity that comes with it.
Sure.
We can even swear together, or we can even joke together because we're already brothers or sisters just by looking each other in the eye.
Yeah, all the infinite number of nuances, right?
You can't even, you can't even really speak to it as much as to just understand it. Like my folks don't have to say they've been there and done that. Half the time I meet somebody new and I go, all my staff is like, yeah, I know. Well, how did you know? I just knew. Yeah. And that's gold to me. It's like, okay, we're doing everything right. If this person felt so comfortable that they were among family and friends.
That's beautiful.
The other strength is like this continuity among staff. It's like all my staff have this common bond. And then we have broken down the barrier between us and them.
That actually made my hair on my arms go up. That is beautiful.
Right? So we're teammates in our experience. And then we're we're among a village, we're among community, among the residents. Because the residents, we're like, there's no us and them, we're just a little further along the path. So it so breaks down like so much of the work that has to get done, because the work can't get done until we get to the truth. And the truth is never going to come out till somebody is safe. What are some of the weaknesses? Is that both residents and staff, they take a long time to trust that they're safe. And we can tell you over and over and over again, you're safe, but sometimes we're not going to believe that. We've heard that over and over and over again. And so we're going to continue with bad habits. We're going to continue, with our self-talk, our self-esteem issues, our, needing to, really vent and talk and be truthful and have support with whether it's internally or externally, but, people who are not seeking support and are having a hard time, like, getting to the truth. That's probably our biggest struggle, because, like, in a work environment, people aren't as forthcoming as they would be, like, in our community environments. Where, like, hey, this is going on, I don't mind telling you, but then in a work environment, like, teammates want to keep secrets and people want to keep secrets, and it's like, no, we want to deal with panic attacks or, significant mental health issues or substance use issues the same way we would deal with our guests. Like, what can we do to support you? How can we get you through this? This doesn't mean you're losing your place. It doesn't mean you're losing your job.
Can anybody ever lose their job? Or do you just hang in there and work through it?
Depending on the level of honesty, willingness to do what it takes, the same thing we would ask anybody, and time. So we have worked through people that have gone through relapses. We've worked through people like deciding to needing some time off and need to go and come back.
Yeah.
Leave of absences.
We have leave of absences. And honestly, we can pause things. I mean, we support a big group of frontline workers. And I think in the same area, we try to make sure that are they connecting with some of our wellness benefits? Or, we have a partnership with the YMCA, and we say, have you gone swimming? Have you gone and just, hung out and done some exercise and self-care? And I mean, I know it sounds always cliche, but I mean, honestly, the more that we can involve ourselves into that self-care, whatever that looks like to each individual person, that it is helpful on that holistic sort of way. And so really just making sure that we have communication with them and that they're empowered to do that. I think any group of people trying to connect to what their next chapter is and what that next level of responsibility is, I think different people take it differently. We have some guidelines, and then we have a lot of grace, and then we try to make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction. I think we've got a really good group of folks that they like their job. They like the space that they're a part of creating. They feel that purpose. Part of that journey of recovery and healing is that there's a point that you want to give back and that you want to share what you've learned. They're the embodiment of hope, and of that, so if you've done that, maybe I can do that. And we've actually had some folks that have been in our programs, have gone through the program, and then come back and said, I'm ready to apply to maybe do that too. And so I think it gives people some hope to recognize that the difficult work and the journey of learning that it has been wasn't for nothing. Yeah, it wasn't for naught. And that it has some sort of value in not just their life and their journey, but it can be in a bigger idea of our community's journey, because a lot of us have gone through this economic crisis that has affected the stability of our communities. I mean, we've been priced out of things, we've been pushed out, we've had, what those choices have been limited, and there's a lot of people that, when faced with those big changes and challenges, some of us make good decisions and some of us don't make good decisions, and it takes a while to learn through the lessons of growing up. The more that we can continue to use our resources to help both sides of that. It's
create that environment
that
for
there
them.
is no difference between us and them. But we just might be a little further along in our journey, and that we might have some things that we can share with you that we've learned.
Yeah, the beautiful thing too in that conversation that I really like is this bit about being further along in the journey. Like we have an infinite number of lines radiating out from us, right? And so on this journey of employment and housing, you might be further along, but maybe in this other journey of compassion to animals or connection to nature or engineering mind or art, then you might find yourself further back, and the person that you're talking to, maybe one of the residents, is further along in that journey.
Absolutely.
So we tend to only look at the journey of, in a capitalistic viewpoint, like, hey, how much money are you making? Can you afford that house, that car? But that's not the worth of a human being.
Not at all. Not at all.
What are some things that you have learned from the people that you get to work with, like staff and residents? The reason I'm asking that question is I think that's one of the gifts that wait for people, that just sits there and waits for people that are in houses when they begin to engage with folks that have lived experiences. That there are so many lessons there.
I've learned to be more patient. I've learned to be more forgiving, to have grace. I've learned to give up control and let hear as much as possible. I've learned to trust. I've learned to ask for the truth and listen.
I think trust is a big part of it, because there's no way that we would be able to do this on our own. We've got a lot of people that have got a lot of skill that they bring to the table. Trusting ourselves in the choices that we've made within those staff members. One of the big things that I've learned is to never be surprised to be surprised. Oh, you've seen this before. You've heard this before. You create your own ideas of how this is probably going to go, and people really will never not surprise you.
For me, meeting folks that have, over the last 13, 14 years, meeting folks outside, it constantly reminds me to stop making assumptions, because they're just like always wrong. I mean, people do surprise you, and it's the norm.
Yeah.
What's the future look like for Outsiders Inn?
We have three full-time shelters, a fourth shelter in the wintertime, an outreach program, and mail service. So that's how we manage the 42 people. And our newest program, which we got a small grant to help support, is our housing stability specialist. So we really want to take it to the next level. So many people, when they leave us, they're so sad to leave, and we aren't able to follow them due to contracts. So we've developed a temporary program so we can have some support to follow folks no matter what type of housing they go into, not just limited to people going housing programs, but any type of housing, and really just focus on how can we make sure that they're successful, stable, that they have the tools that they need, they know how to mitigate problems, landlord communications, being a good neighbor, all those different things that might somehow get people in trouble once they leave a shelter.
Yeah. And does that include staying connected to this community of Outsiders Inn?
We would say a lot of folks, when they leave our communities, they automatically come back. That's just normal, but now we want to be able to have permission to go visit them and see them and then help them mitigate issues, whether it's cleaning issues, hoarding issues, whether it's not communication. Yeah. Maybe they just don't like their neighbor, but they're great neighbors, but they don't like their neighbor. The neighbor's mean. Maybe we can help with that. It's not always that our residents are going to have issues, but maybe just integrating into a new community. Yeah. It might be issues, and we want to be that peer support person that's going to come, that's in between, that can be the mediator, that can be the support, and maybe there's some funding that was needed, maybe it's furniture, maybe it's quality of life, whatever it is, we want to go there and visit people and be able to say, like, okay, we don't want to leave you hanging. We want to make sure you're successful here, too.
Yeah, it's not just, okay, see ya, good luck.
And remember, I'm always eyeing every potential shelter guest as a potential employee. So the more we're going into people's homes and see they can run their home and, no.
Yeah. But
yeah.
But yes to that too, right? Because that's how the world works, right? Like if you can move forward and you're proving yourself being able to take on something actually with more responsibility.
There's no reason that any community member needs to be isolated and not able to find some sort of purpose and what's next for them and what would they like to be involved in. I mean, that's part of having a healthy community, is having, a healthy community around you and
that
connections.
Means not leaving anybody out there.
If you look at the traditional model of shelter, where people are congregate, non-congregate, doesn't really matter. Case manager, 1 out of 35 people. You see your case manager once every week maybe. Barely know what's going on. Eventually you get pulled for some kind of housing, you get a housing program, and you're, okay, 30% of your income, you're out, you're in a new place. You might have somebody come visit you once a month, if that's part of your program. So you're kind of like left with, I have this place to take care of. When people come to our community, we're talking every week about chores. We're talking every week about who did what on the toilet seat. We're talking every week about how come people can just walk in the gate. We're talking about how come people aren't following curfew. We're talking about good neighbor things every week as a community, like a family would. And so, and we go through hard times, we go through bad times. So-and-so was yelling and screaming last night. We talk about that. We talk about celebrations. So-and-so got their reward. We're all celebrating. When graduations happen, people all get to say really cool or nice or inspirational things to the person that's graduating. So it's like, so when people go into a new house from our programs, they have heard over and over again stuff about toilet seats and stuff about chores and stuff about cleaning the fridge out. If they spent any time with us, they've really got to like dive into life skills. And at least it's planted in their brain. So then when we come and visit them and we say, hey, we talked about this, it's not like I'm some stranger coming to tell them they need to clean their apartment. Yeah. I'm some friend that says, hey, we've talked about cleaning. And remember when your unit was like that, And remember what you did then? And you can do this, right? We can do this, right? And we can pull out because this is a common occurrence or an event we've been through together already.
Well, you're in relationship.
Yes.
It's just, it always comes back, right?
It does.
To a relationship.
Yep.
What would you say to people that are in the housed community that don't have any connection to the homeless in any way? And it's pretty easy to do, right? In our world, you can leave your house, get in your car, drive to work, go to the store, get home, and pretty much steer clear if you choose to. What would you say to those folks?
It's not as distant as we can make it. I think sometimes we're able to avert our eyes and to just stay in the small circle of things that we have influence on. But it's real. We do create our own house and our own yard and behind our fence. And then, it's kind of like in our own neighborhood now, soon to be 300, plus homes not too far away. And then there's a lot of people are like, oh, they worry about the extra population. They worry about what's that going to do for the roads. And those are valid questions. But at the same time, are we prepared to say yes in my backyard? Are we prepared to go through the changes of what that is? Or are we going to be just the person who is complaintive about it? Because it's going to be uncomfortable for everybody in a different way. But are we going to be complaining about it? Or are we going to lean into it and to say, but we do need more housing? And a lot of this crisis has been driven through stock of housing and then because of price things. And so if one of the answers is to make housing available, then we're going to have to build more of it, and we're going to have to say yes to that in our backyards, in our policies, and in our
the fabric
choices.
The built fabric has to change. That's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to think of our neighborhoods exactly like we've always seen them and grown up with them.
No.
There's too much of a housing shortage.
I think our community has its heart in the right place. They recognize that this is a complex situation, that it's intersecting, it's economic, it's housing stock, but then it's also, we do have a crisis on opioid crises, and everything just kind of intersects in this area that, well, how can we keep everybody safe, and how can we address things in a way that it might not have been the way we would have addressed it 20 years ago before the days of fentanyl. And now we have to come up with some different ideas on what that might look like. It's frustrating, but at the same time, it's also hopeful to see our community try to lead with its heart and come up with compassionate solutions.
If the whole community felt like the both of you felt, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I mean, I really do think it's all addressable. It's just we have to get everybody involved on the same page, right? To see the human being in front of them rather than all the impact that their life, which is struggling, is now putting onto a person that is living inside. And I think we have to get past that.
So if we're speaking to folks that homelessness doesn't touch their lives very often, but briefly, I would want to encourage people to really educate themselves about the problem nationwide, not just in their city, but really look at the increase from 500,000 to probably 750,000 just in the last couple of years. That it happens in the richest places more than in the poorer places. Look at the trends and educate themselves. I would ask people to really educate themselves first and foremost. Secondly, the stigma, the rhetoric is only going to get worse when it comes to saying that folks they're just doing drugs, they're just doing this, they're just doing that. The fentanyl epidemic is affecting us as homeless folks, is affecting us drastically. But the fastest growing populations are youth and folks on Social Security. So again, I would ask people to really educate themselves. People don't spend enough time on their sidewalks. Folks don't spend enough time walking. Folks don't spend enough time outside, but they sure have a lot to say about it. I've walked all the sidewalks, and I know who walks the sidewalks, and it's far and few between. It's the people in cars with their 5 seconds of judgment going by. If you really want to know, immerse yourself with an organization that allows people to come to their organization and meet folks and go serve somewhere, go volunteer somewhere, go really educate yourself about who are we. And take a walk with someone who knows, or, just like you did, go say hello. I mean, it all starts with just really humanizing people and realizing that homelessness is not a problem. These are humans that are experiencing homelessness that really need to be acknowledged. When I became homeless, I immediately became other people's judgment when nothing had really changed about all the qualities that I had prior to me becoming homeless. I was an experienced restaurant manager. I had been married. I had all these things that I could speak of. But once I became homeless, I was that homeless guy. I was that dirty guy. I was that guy in the dumpster over there. And no, I wasn't. I was still Adam with all those same qualities, but I had to live outside because of the circumstances that happened. And primarily, most of the time, the circumstances are economic. Divorced, raising rents, an accident. For me, it was a combination of three things. And then it was, depression on top of that because I can't believe I have to live outside. I can't believe I'm sleeping under a bush. Who wouldn't be immediately, and morbidly depressed about your situation when you lose everything?
Well, especially if the community is also looking down on you now.
Right, every single person, you can't walk in any door without being looked at. I hope and pray that, like a lot of the work that we did over the last 10 years has really helped to change Vancouver's culture that allows for that camping that you see today. Because 10 years ago, there was no camping allowed anywhere, and police would immediately arrest you if you put up a tent.
That's so impressive.
So maybe we had an influence on that, and I like to think, and maybe this has an influence on other people, that they're really going to go out there and just realize we are no different than you. We are just people that circumstances happen to, and then we have to recover from that and help others.
Yeah. Relationships between the homed and the homeless are for the most part missing in our cities and communities. We have created an us and them understanding of the issue, supported by the negative stereotype. If we are going to successfully address homelessness, we need to begin by being in relationship with each other. When we do this, our understanding of the other person's story changes. We begin to see the nuances of the struggles and achievements, giving us understanding, empathy, and trust in the person across from us. That trust in each other is the foundation of a healthy community. Thank you, Adam and Ren, for building that trust at Outsiders Inn. You Know Me Now is a project under the nonprofit Facing Homelessness. It is produced, written, and edited by Tomas Bernatsky and me, Rex Holbein. Please join us on our very active Facebook pages, Facing Homelessness and You Know Me Now, where you can join in on the conversation. A heartfelt thank you to Ren and Adam for sharing so openly with us, and to all of you for listening.